it's Sarah from Midnight Butterfly Designs, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to make the Cymothoe sangaris, or it's probably easier to say the blood red glider. As its name suggests, we'll be using a lot of red today, various shades of brown and black. We'll also be using a roller, an X-Acto knife, a ballpoint tool, a flexible blade of your choosing. I also use a pasta machine. All of my clay is Premo Sculpey. I just find it canes really well. So we're going to start by rolling out all of our red shades. You're going to do that on the thicker setting on the pasta machine, and then we're going to go ahead and cut equal squares out of each of the colours. I chose to cut 2. What we are doing here is we are going to create a stacked colour cane, which means, as it sounds really, we're going to stack the colours in a random order to make a cane. We're doing this so that we can create texture in an otherwise very simple wing. The blood red glider is obviously red, but the variation in the wing is quite subtle, so I thought this particular cane would be a good way to show that subtlety without detracting from the detail. So I'm going to add each of the squares to my cane. I'm doing this in as random an order as possible. Once it's all done, smoosh that cane right down because you really don't want air bubbles at this point. I use a roller to keep the edges straight because this is going to be a square cane for a little while. What you want to do then is cut it in half and get rid of any air bubbles because you'll see mine has some. Then cut one half in half again as shown and stack it around the edge of the other one. What this does is it just creates variation within the cane. The more variation and organic kind of randomness that you can get into the cane, the more that your butterfly is going to look realistic. That's what we're aiming for here. So I'm pulling and pushing on the cane. This is to reduce the cane. What I'm trying to do is to reduce the height of the cane, so perpendicular to the stripes, and then parallel to the stripes I'm trying to pull the cane outwards. So I'm lengthening the cane down the length of the stripe. I'm going to do this because in a moment I'm going to cut it in half and stack the cane on top of itself. What I'm trying to do is create a really nice texture. Unfortunately, when you first stack the cane, the lines are going to be too thick for the size of butterfly that I'm showing you how to do. So what we want is to reduce this cane a couple of times and stack it as shown, so that we get a nice texture but it doesn't overload the butterfly. You want something that's simple, adds a little bit of difference with, you know, when you look at the wing, but doesn't overtake the overall design. So I'm going to do this a couple of times. We made it, guys. So this is the finished elongate cane. I'm going to cut it in 2 because obviously I need part for the top and part for the bottom. So we're going to start using a piece for the top wing. Doesn't really matter if you use a slightly bigger bit or a slightly smaller bit. All comes out in the wash. So what you want to do is you want to shape your oblong so that it's got a lovely curved area at the top. The way that you sort of do this is you sort of push it to start with because you're trying to get the curve in the lines as well. You don't want to smoosh it to start with, so you want to just gently pull the clay around. You can see here I'm just gently teasing the clay around, and you'll get a little bit of a curve in the top then, because obviously the veins are going to come from that particular point in the wing where it attaches to the body. So this is where the pen or the paintbrush or the needle tool come into play. We want to put some grooves in the edge of the wing. There's a few grooves of varying sizes. So here I sort of dabbled between a paintbrush, which is a lot thicker, and my knitting needle or crochet needle to get that particular indentations. It's quite rounded, so obviously we've gone from a oblong shape, so you want to make sure that you really do round off those corners. Then grab a reference photo and draw on some veins. I had a reference photo out of shop, and also I usually do a doodle, so that's how I know where the veins are here. And then I didn't really have the right colour for the veins, so I thought I would mix them up. I wanted to make a slightly brownier, bit muddier red to do the veins, but what we're going to do here is a different technique to what I've done before with veins, where I've just stuck to one colour, and we are going to sandwich this bit of brown in between bits of red. So the brown I rolled out on a 3 setting, and the red I rolled out on a 2 setting. You want to layer them so that the brown sits on the red, and I'm saving that bit of red on the left hand side because that's going to go over the top. So I take off the tape, flip it onto the red, and then cut around it. Trying to keep my colours separate with the waist because I may mix up more of this colour later. You want to pat this down, take it from your mat gently. It was a really hot day, so everything stuck to everything. And you can see there the brown in between the red. And I've just run that tape through the pasta machine on a 3. You don't want it too thick, but at the same time you do kind of want the definition. And can you see here I'm using my flexible blade to get a nice curve where I'm cutting where I've just drawn on the veins. I'm then going to insert pieces of the vein colour that we've just made. I do this by taking each piece and just laying it on that particular tape and just cutting off the edges. The thing about cane building, which is probably one of the biggest tips I can give you, is that you need to look after all sides of the cane, top, bottom, left, right. If you do that, you will come out with really spectacular canes, and you will also minimise your waste, which is probably the biggest factor with most of you when you do caning, is you find that there's a lot of waste. And there's a lot of great ways you can use your waste, but at the same time, if we can minimise it, I am all down for that, because polymer clay is not a cheap hobby. So stick all the pieces of the wing together with the veins in between, and next we're going to work on the edges of the wing. They actually have some sort of veins that seem to be quite prominent on the edges, so I'm going to use the ballpoint tool just to sort of give me a guide of where I'm going to cut. I actually end up doing 2 pieces in the top bit, 3 pieces in the second bit, a piece in the third bit and a piece at the bottom. Use the X-Acto knife to try and get a nice curve in there and try and make the top part of the cane even to the bottom part of the cane. Then I'm going to take a little bit of the vein colour and insert it into that gap. I'm going to do that for all of these pieces and just very carefully remove any excess pieces that I don't need. Some are deeper than others, some are quite shallow. It's up to you. Just adding a little bit more to the top of the wing there. You can see I cut off a little bit. This was a vein that just doesn't go anywhere, but it was there on my picture, so I did it. So you can sort of see how the wing is coming together. The next thing we are going to make is a speckle cane. I've made quite a few of these for a lot of my butterflies, but in case this is your first video, this is how you make one. you cut out lots of long, different thickness sausages. In this case from 3 colours, you can also do it from 2 or however many you want to. I do mine from a sort of a darker orange, I do it from a sort of a paler brown, and I do it from a black as well. And what you're trying to achieve with this cane is variation. So this particular speckle cane is going to go between the wing and the body effectively. Most butterflies have a texture there, so you'll probably find this cane in a lot of my videos. So what I'm doing here once I've cut out all the sausages is I'm sticking them together in the most random of orders that you can. If you stick 2 together at the same colour, doesn't matter, just keep going. Just try and keep turning the cane so you're not neglecting one side and sort of focusing all of one colour on one side. Then we're going to push all the pieces of clay together, give it a little roll so we can reduce it. So we're going to cut it into 4 now and squish the logs together to create a more varied cane. Try not to match the sides up. You want the most random cane you could possibly get out of this one. Remember, random equals realistic. My final reduction, I tend to create a log that has straight sides, probably called a square cane, not sure. And you then squish them together in the most random way possible. I just do this because sometimes I need straight lines more than I do sort of curved lines half the time with the speckle cane, whether it's cutting out a triangle, whether it's cutting out shards, so on. So I lengthen the cane a little bit because I want 2 pieces, one for the top wing and one for the bottom wing. With this particular butterfly there is quite a lot of the speckles on the wings, but I don't think you'll use all of that cane. So I'm going to cut into the wing in some V's and just cut off a little bit on the edges. Then I'm going to make the speckle cane go into a point and add it to the wing. This just gives the illusions that the speckles are fading into the main colour. So after inputting all those pieces into the cane, I'm just going to squish it down just to make sure there aren't any air bubbles and that all the clay is stuck together. I put a bit of brown through the pasta machine on the thicker setting. This is sort of the middle shade brown, and I'm going to put it on the edge of the top wing, just on the top sort of third of the wing, and I'm just going to push it over the top corner. If you look at a reference photo for this particular butterfly, you'll see that it has a bit of a darker brown around there. Then going to wrap the edge with black. You'll notice when I put this on the wing that it really does sort of make the red pop. This black was rolled out on a 3 setting. You could use a thinner one and sort of stack it if you wanted to, but that's up to you. I used a 3. Sort of trying to get it in all the crevices that we've made, using whatever tools you want. The top edge where we put the brown has the thickest area of black, so what I did there was I rolled out another piece that was on a 3 setting and just added it over the top of the existing black. Pretty much that is the top wing done. So we're halfway there, guys. So moving on to the bottom wing, which is a little bit more involved. So we're going to pinch out one side and try and get the veins to follow the curve that we have made. Then we're going to try and curve the edges of the other side a little bit so we have more of a teardrop shape, but we want to make the bottom side really quite fat. So try and push and pull until that's done so. On the inner edge by the body there is a bunch of brown that we need to insert. So what I'm doing here is I'm just using my roller just to create a space for that, and you sort of want the wing to kind of go in on itself, sort of a curve inward, so that we can put the brown in that space. So here I'm going to do a really quick, it's called a teardrop skinner blend. So I'm going to roll out 3 browns into teardrop shapes. I'm going to stick them together, fat end to thin end, thin end to fat end, like so. I'm going to smoosh it down, just give it a roll, and then I'm going to pop it through the pasta machine a few times on the thickest setting. So once you're happy with your blend, fold it in half or to as small a tape as you want to, run it through the pasta machine. I ran it through on a 3 setting, and then create a block out of it. I do this in 2 ways usually. You can either do it as a concertina, which is what I'm showing you on screen, or you can cut it into same width lengths and stack them. It's completely up to you, but I thought I'd do a different technique this time. What you're going to do is you're going to reduce that into a log, and then we'll cut it into 3 and stack the bits on top of each other so that we've got a variation. Next we're just going to create a sort of a really long teardrop, and then we're going to stick it to the bottom wing in the space that we've created for the brown section. Then you really need to look at your reference photo to make sure you're happy with the shape of the wing. I took off a little bit at the bottom and then a little bit at the side. I don't want the brown to overpower the red, so really make sure that you shape the brown here, because if you have the brown bit too large it will make the wing look really cartoony. So next we're just going to add some detail to the edge of the wing using a pen or a needle tool or a paintbrush end, just to give us some definition on the edge. You can see how it sort of stacks up for size. We're going to be adding more speckle cane to the bottom wing here by cutting out V's in the area that's going to be sitting next to the body of the butterfly. We're going to take some sections of the speckle cane and insert it into the bottom cane. Remember, look after the top side of the cane as well as the bottom side of the cane, which is why I'm flipping it over to make sure that the speckle cane is all the way into the cane. Trim away and add as much or as little as you like. Remember to shape it as you go. Next, the bottom wing has these very interesting black spots in it. So I'm using my knitting needle to go through the cane and make some holes. I do this first rather than cut and then make the groove. I just find it means that the clay keeps its shape better. So then cut into the gap that you've made and tease a little sausage of black into those spaces. I found it easy to sort of pull the clay apart, but I needed to use my knitting needle to just push that clay right in. At this point, to be fair, the red clay was probably more solid than the black clay, so that also stopped distortion. So once all those back bits are in, give it a good pat and then draw on the veins with your ballpoint tool. Use a reference picture, but basically the veins go from the point where the wing will meet the body right to the edge of the wing to the points of the wing, that is the bits between the black dots. Using a long flexible blade, cut the lines that you have just drawn on. You can see that some are one way and some are the other way. You can increase the curves by shaping the pieces once you've cut them, that's up to you. If you feel like you really want a really curved thing, or perhaps you don't have a long blade. You want to make sure you've got some vein colour, which is the same as the top, so that's the very small piece of brown sandwiched between the red and then rolled out into a tape section. And then you want to insert that in between the pieces of the wing. You can taper bits of the veins by just pinching them to a point before applying them to the wings. This just gives it a sort of fading out look toward the edge of the wing, because veins are very thick toward the inner wing and less so toward the outer wing. Once you have stuck all the pieces together, give it a good pat down. I just gently use the roller just to keep the clay in place. It was a very hot day when I made this cane, so the clay is misbehaving. Hence I go through the edges with my paintbrush again. Unfortunately, I did then find that the bottom wing was a lot bigger than the top wing, so I did some reductions. I lost some of the edges and I distorted the front. So I cut off the front just so I could show you guys what it sort of looks like underneath, and then I'll re-put the texture on the edge of the wing later. But for everyone who made it this far without having to reduce their cane, you want to roll out a thin bit of black in a long tape. I used Pasta Machine Setting 3, and then you just want to put it around the edge of the wing, about a third of the way toward the inner wing and then all the way down to where the red meets the brown. Just trim off the excess. I re-input the edge of the wing texture, but you probably don't need to. And that is the finished cane. I really hope you enjoyed doing this tutorial. It was a new style of butterfly for me to do, and it was really fun. Thank you for watching this tutorial. I hope you enjoyed it. Please check out my other videos on YouTube and Facebook, and I will see you in the next one. Happy claying!